Welcome to Beyond Checkbox Compliance, the podcast where we challenge the status quo of cybersecurity. I'm Devon Smibert, CEO of Rest of Technology, and in every episode, I'll be sitting down with the sharpest minds in industry to dismantle myths, confront uncomfortable truths, and unpack the strategies that actually protect businesses in today's unpredictable digital world. In a field flooded with fear-driven tactics and checkbox solutions, this show is different. We're not here to scare you. We're here to empower you. So whether you're a seasoned pro, business leader looking for clarity, or just someone who's curious about how to truly stay secure, you've come to the right place. Let's go beyond the bare minimum and start redefining what cybersecurity can and should be. I'm excited to have Terry Singleton with us today, someone I've had the privilege of working with for well over a decade now. Terry and I first met during my time at Enbridge Pipelines, and shortly after, he actually convinced me to join him at Palo Alto Networks as his go-to-market partner in Western Canada. So for anyone who's actually worked with Terry before, he's not your traditional stereotypical salesman who'll do anything to close a deal. But one of the things that I appreciated and others I know have really appreciated working with him is that he actually takes a lot of time to understand what the key challenges are, learn a little bit about the team, and then help to build trust and relationship rather than just driving to sell yet another tool. One of the other things, while most people know Terry as one of the top performing sales leaders or sales directors in the Pacific Northwest in Canada, a lot of people may not know that he actually started out his career on the more technical side of things. We can dive into a little bit later. So Terry, it's been quite a journey for you from starting out building websites before the early days of the .com boom and bubble. Then some time in Nortel, and then you've really had a great run of innovative, disruptive technologies like Palo Alto Networks, and then most recently with your joining DAS. Can you just tell us a little bit about what originally drew you into technology and cybersecurity?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting story. A lot of us don't have this career path where you're in high school and you know exactly what you want to do, and you go to college or university, and it's like a very kind of straight shot, right? And then you get your master's degree and PhD, maybe if you're super lucky. For myself, I was, this is back in dating myself here, but late 1980s, and I was in high school. And it was grade, at that point, it was grade 12. And back in the 1980s, you actually had a grade 13 in Ontario. It was called OAC. And the career counselor said, Terry, it's time to apply to university or college. What do you want to do? And I really had no idea what I want to do, like a lot of us probably. There was a teacher that I had. His name was Mr. Cooper. And he was this incredible math teacher, like very weird sense of humor. But he was, kind of one of these people that you run across in your life that kind of influence you, and you'll reflect back. He was a great teacher. And at that point, computers were just coming in, and I think we had one computer and everybody got to share it. But because he was a math teacher, he was also interested in software programming. And he wrote this application, and it was a game on the computer. And I thought, this is really cool. Like, what a smart man. He's like into math and stuff, but he's writing these computer programs. So he was offering a night course in computer programming. And, I decided I wanted to do it, and found out that, I was good in math, and I found out that translated directly into the computer sciences. And so I just took this night course and just loved it. It was very hands-on. It was very practical. I got to build something. And so that's essentially kind of what got me into tech, or interested in tech. And, after being inspired by him and finding I was actually good at something, I applied to college and got a computer programming degree, and my first job was creating websites. So I was a webmaster / network admin, and so obviously being in computer programming, that's when you're a webmaster, you're writing code. Like essentially, that's what you're doing. You're writing HTML code. So that was that's essentially what got me into interested in.
Very cool, and so you didn't actually start out in cybersecurity, so it was more on the coding HTML side of things, and then at some point you made that transition over into the world of cybersecurity. Was that I think especially a lot of aspiring students or people starting out their careers, they're often looking for advice on, how did you chart out your career? How did you follow this path that has clearly been very successful for you? Maybe tell us a little bit about what that looked like for you, how you found your way to cybersecurity.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to say I charted the path, and when I was 18 years old, I decided this path was for me. And I don't think a lot of us would say that there wasn't a path they charted. I think they've kind of fallen into things. I think there's a demand in cybersecurity for for good people, and it's almost like you fall into that or you find it accidentally. But the way I was first introduced to cybersecurity, essentially, reflecting back, it was I was writing the website for this healthcare company. And I thought it'd be great if our customers didn't have to call an 800 number to get tech support. What if they could just create a ticket online? So bear in mind, this is probably 1995 or 1996, where your internet connection was a dial-up modem, and if you were lucky, you had ISDN, which would give you 128K to the internet, and everybody in the office would share that. So I was busily creating HTML for the website, and I think we had 30 or 40 customers at that time. And I said, what if we just created like a sport website for them? And we asked them essentially for a username and a password. And I was going to email them that username and password prior. And then I had this great idea to make it a lot easier for them to log in. So instead of having to enter a username, I would just have a drop-down list, and that drop-down list would have every single customer name. And they just have to select who they were and then their password that, I sent to them. And I remember showing this, I was very proud of it, showing it to it was either the COO or the CEO. And I said, look at this great thing I've created. We can do tech support online. And I remember the CEO looking at it, was like, that's her entire customer list. So yeah, it'll be super easy for them. They don't even need a username. But obviously data can be a competitive advantage. And, they didn't think that was a good idea to put our customers' names on the website, because obviously our competitors could just start prospecting into them. So it was kind of a slap on the wrist, and that wasn't such a great idea. I thought from a usability perspective, it was super simple, but that was kind of, security back then. It was like, we didn't have a firewall. Most organizations didn't have a firewall. And so then I actually started thinking about security. So I thought that was,
Yeah.
yeah.
In the good old days where, really at the heart of the invention or creation of the internet was the whole purpose of it was to, connect people and facilitate the sharing of information.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's one of those things that in the world of cybersecurity, at least I've always seen, we're always in this trying to find this balance between how do you empower business innovation and transformation and things by making it easy for data flow, making it easy to connect systems and to make things happen. But then, understanding the risks of, making that information freely available on the internet. And maybe that's something we can come back to a little bit later, because I feel like over the 20 years of my career in cybersecurity, it seems like we keep relearning the same lessons over and over and over again. Every time there's a new technology that comes to the workspace, whether it was the early days of virtualization, when we're going from physical servers to virtual machines, or from virtual machines to the cloud. Yeah, each time we kind of have these new innovations that make things more productive and easier, but then come with new challenges that need to be solved on the cybersecurity side of things. So, like you've definitely had an interesting, fascinating journey. Starting out, writing websites, and then becoming a system engineer at Nortel and Cisco, and so you spent, would that been like half your career, or over half your career on the technical side of things, on the engineering kind of developer side of things, before making the transition to a more sales and account executive role?
Yeah, I would say so. And I just wanted to, share kind of another story. I mean, obviously, when I was creating these websites, it actually started putting customers' names and drop-down lists on our public website. It had me, obviously kind of reflect on how I was actually writing code to be secure. But I had another incident that was like a lot more personal that really got me to dive into cybersecurity from a technical perspective. So I was working at another organization, and I call it an APT. Again, this was back in 1998, Advanced Persistent Threat Against Terry. It didn't exist. It wasn't really advanced, but what I had found out is that somebody was actually impersonating me. So back in 1997, 98, we all had the instant messaging applications. I think it was AOL or MSN or something like that. And turned out that somebody had gone and created an account. And just like when you create an email account today, there's nothing stopping you from putting anyone else's first name and last name in there. And you could do the same thing with instant messaging applications back then. So I found out that somebody was impersonating me, and they created an instant messaging account as Terry Singleton. And they were actually chatting with somebody else in the office, and this person approached me and was like, "Hey, it's nice talking to you." And obviously, it wasn't me. So my forensics capability actually started kicking in there. So I was not only I was the webmaster, but I was the network admin. And I was really interested to figure out, like, who's this person that's impersonating? It's obviously not me. I was married with children at the time, but somebody was impersonating me, flirting with somebody in the office. So I wanted to find out who this was. And I obviously was inquisitive, and I found out a tool called Wireshark. So I installed Wireshark on this person's machine. So, kind of a technical thing, and did packet captures and found out the IP address of this person that was messaging this other person. And because I was the network admin, went to the DHCP server, found out who that IP address was kind of leased to, and found out the person's username and password, their username, and went to their office and confronted them. But I remember being, very upset that somebody was impersonating me. But I think I was more proud that I was able to kind of use forensics and all these kind of cool tools like Wireshark and the DHCP server to kind of who it was. So that it was a very proud moment. It's like, wow, I'm actually good at this. And that didn't exist back then, right? Like, this is 1998, and like just stitching all these little pieces of metadata or context together and finding out who it was. I felt like I was an investigator. And I remember being really proud about myself. It's like, geez, I could probably make a career of this. And so fast forward, I've kind of made a career, but started as a nerd, started as an SE, because that's where my roots were back then.
That's awesome. And I'm sure that a lot of people who get into the field of cybersecurity have similar stories or experiences, as you were sharing that example of, finding these tools and kind of problem solving and then stitching them together, stitching these different pieces of technology together to solve a problem, and that kind of reward you would get out of that. It actually reminds me to my very early days of getting introduced to technology. Also, for me, I also kind of stumbled into cybersecurity, and my early interactions with, things that you would consider to be in the cybersecurity domain were, it would probably fall into the category of the true definition of hacker, right? Like, I think a lot of people, when they hear the term hacker, they think of the malicious activities, trying to steal information and trying to impersonate others, all those typical things are associated with the bad side of, what adversaries and threat actors can do with technology today. But the actual original definition of hacker was more around the, we'll say almost an intellectual or a kind of the pursuit of seeing what is possible with technology, right? So in the early days of hacking, people may have attempted a denial of service attack, or they may have attempted to, break into other computer systems, but it was usually inspired by, in many cases, a desire to help that company understand that their systems were insecure. And it was often, hackers would be doing these things to help companies learn about their vulnerabilities. And what now we would charge, hundreds of thousands of dollars for these penetration tests and finding vulnerabilities in people's systems. People were originally just doing that for free. And so in my younger days, I remember we got access to a number of computer systems in the Calgary Board of Education, not properly supervised. And so myself and a friend of mine who also now owns his own technology business, we had found these tools on the internet that we downloaded. We figured out how to kind of script them, configure them, and ultimately ended up taking down the entire Calgary Board of Education network for a few days while they tried to figure out what was going on in their network. So yeah, I think that challenge of solving problems, figuring things out is very common for people who get into the industry of cybersecurity. And now that's where maybe I'll say what I've observed if we look at that core group that came from Nortel Networks, and it was three system engineers, if I remember correctly, yourself, Brent Martinson, and Regan Herbst, right? So the three of you were all system engineers at Nortel, right? And have now all transitioned on to be, some of the, most trusted, most successful account executives. So maybe and this is, being coming from the engineering and technology side of things, maybe I'm a bit biased, but I believe there's a bit of a trend there that we've seen, not just amongst that group, but amongst others, where if you start with that deep understanding of the technology, that it can make you better on the account executive sales side of things. Can you maybe double click on that a little bit and explore what you see as some relationships or correlation, causation there?
Yeah, I mean the Nortel story is really fun, right? So both Regan and Brent were systems engineers at Nortel. At that point, Nortel decided that they had to compete with Cisco. So to get in the security business, they bought a VPN technology. I think it was a company called New Oak back then, but VPN was security back then, and they bought this company and needed a sales engineer. And both Regan and Brent, I think Regan was doing the optical switching and routing, and Brent Martins was the IT telephony guy. Nobody wanted to do security, and so they hired me to do it because none of them wanted to do it at that point. So it was like a pretty incredible journey. After becoming a systems engineer, I went into product management, and that really helped me understand, I think, what are the problems that the customers are trying to solve with technology, because obviously you build a product and people have to buy it. So we would take a lot of feedback from customers in terms of, like, we've got this product today, we're looking to bring it to market. What are the 3 to 5 problems that you need this technology to solve? And so it was very kind of customer oriented, where you work with customers to understand, where are their gaps, where are they trying to automate or innovate, and then you build that into a product such they'll buy it. And so I think just having that inquisitive kind of mindset certainly helps me today, because I do want to understand, what are the problems that the customer is trying to solve. And then, because I have a kind of a technical background, like, I'm also motivated by kind of new and cool technology. And therefore I'm also motivated by helping customers run, kind of disruptive process or disruptive motion in their organizations, kind of disrupt themselves and what they're doing and help them automate. So I think just starting out as a systems engineer, kind of a technical guy, helped me understand to map my product or my platform into a customer's business pain, and then to help them buy it.
And so you get that deep understanding of what the problem is, and then obviously from there, there's a range of different ways to tackle those problems. You've seemed to have this track record of working with these, the new innovators and disruptors, right? So you were one of the first employees in Palo Alto Networks in Canada. You helped over the course of several years, take the concept of the next gen firewall from something that was really, it was a new word, or sorry, it's a new term, that a new market segment that didn't previously exist. Can so I'm assuming that your engineering background helps you understand that, okay, wow, this is a fundamentally different technology. This is something new. This is something that can help people I know in the industry solve problems. But can you talk a little bit about, some of the uphill battles that you face when you are in that kind of early innovator, disruptor phase of the market?
Yeah, Devin, it's kind of a fun story. You kind of shared at the start how we met, right? We met when you were at a large oil and gas organization, and I'm at an innovative startup, right? Where what the market was purchasing was kind of independent solutions. You had a firewall, you had an IDS, and you had an IPS, you had a URL filtering solution. And so not only my first loss, let me kind of back up a little bit. My first loss at Palo Alto Networks was to you, right? So you were the first customer that said no to Terry and Palo Alto Networks. And one of the things
Sorry
that
for that.
it ends well. One of the things that Devin, one of the things that you taught me was that sometimes it's not just about the technology. Like Palo had great technology, but I asked for an exit interview or a loss interview with you, and I believe we had our CEO on the call, and maybe I think it was your CIO, might have been Catherine at the time. And I think you explained to me, first of all, said, Terry, you can have this exit interview, this loss interview, but you can't try to reverse the decision. I said, okay, great. I just want to know, what I did wrong, or what I could do better in the future. And you explained to me that you said, hey, I think Palo Alto was great technology. I think it's better than what we have now, but our renewal is coming up in 6 months. And you taught me a lesson about operationalizing technology, right? So when you have a business that's operationalized a bunch of different technologies, there's people and there's processes behind that. And so even though I had a better technology, there was a huge operational impact to you operationalizing something new in your organization. And that's why you told me we lost. And so I think that's why it's really, really important as salespeople, as account executives, is to really understand kind of the customer's environment, right? Like not only what are their business plan, their problems and challenges, if you like this technology, how do we help you buy it? But also what are the operational impacts, to me, or to deploying this new technology internally. And it just turned out in the case of you guys in the organization you're at, it was just too much of an operational impact. And we didn't have enough time, right? So 6 months wasn't enough time for you to operationalize a new technology. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that's taking me way back, that because that would have been about 13 years ago, maybe 13
2011,
ish.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's been, interesting as we've been going on the journey of building our business at Restive. It's been an interesting role reversal for me to then think back to, okay, well, what were the drivers? What were the factors that would have led me to choose, one solution versus another? And I think that's where one of the things that you've taught me a lot, and you, Brent, Ree, many others in the industry have been, or at least trying to teach me, is that there's all there. There are other intangibles, and in many cases, they often boil down to the trust and the confidence in achieving an outcome, right? And in many cases, throughout my career, we often, as part of a request for proposal, RFP, or other process, we did choose, the solution perhaps not the best from a technical perspective, because we had the confidence in the team and the people and the others that would help us with that operationalization side of things. So now, again, just kind of connecting those dots again, that yeah, it's you there are other factors that come into play, especially in the world of cybersecurity, where in many cases for regulated industries or others, while I always love to think that it's all about the technology, there are definitely other factors at play there.
Yeah, I think the cost of change can be pretty significant. One of the things I like to talk to potential customers about as well is like, what's the cost of not changing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and that is, it's you and I have had a few entertaining discussions about the DIY approach to cybersecurity and risk management, where so many organizations. We were talking to a Fortune 500 company just a couple weeks ago, who are, they've got all of the big names in there. They've got the big four consulting firms. They've got the biggest technology companies around the table, but they're still managing their risks and their vulnerabilities in spreadsheets, because it's, yeah, because we're, and in this case it is a little bit about that.
Yeah,
navigating those decisions to stick with the status quo or to take a chance on something new and innovative, right?
yeah. In some cases, the problems customers are addressing are like they're not new issues. They've existed for 20 years or so. And so a lot of times solutions didn't exist. Today you've got, I think I was reading this report, on average, customers will have 10 to 15 different security vendors. And if you're a larger customer, that might mean 60 to 70 different security tools. A lot of those security tools kind of act in silos, and
Mm-hmm.
like they have amazing data, but that data is here, then you have data here and data here, and there's nothing that's kind of unified that data. But customers need to kind of unify that data to create context and correlation. Those solutions haven't existed until the last couple of years, and so customers have had to still solve that problem, so they've done it in very manual, kind of inefficient processes. And a lot of times, as you said, they're managing Excel spreadsheets and taking weeks and months just to do that correlation and to start, prioritizing and fixing things like misconfigurations and vulnerabilities, because those exist in many, many different systems now, right? Applications, code, infrastructure, now cloud. It's very difficult for them um, to do that.
Yeah, and I think that what we're seeing now is I believe that with all of the disruption that's coming from artificial intelligence and machine learning and new cloud platforms, automation, orchestration. I think that where before, I think a lot of these, these pain points, these challenges that organizations would be facing of, the lack of data, the lack of visibility, lack of understanding of how all of these different tools stitched together. I think for while organizations have been stretched for a long time and being pushed to do more with less, and cybersecurity teams around the world for years have been dealing with burnout and just not being able to keep up with the pace of things. What's maybe becoming a bit more apparent for a lot of organizations is in addition to maybe the cost of doing nothing, I think that the other thing that's becoming apparent is maybe the cost of the DIY approach, right? So I think back to I've done a lot of home renovations. I've built a lot of things on my own, but there are some things that I'll do because they're not that difficult. I might enjoy it a little bit, but then there are other things that are perhaps a bit higher risk, higher consequences that I just I won't DIY, right? Like I won't DIY natural gas connections into the house, right? Because the consequences of getting that wrong are quite bad. Whereas I remember helping you kind of hoist some beams up onto your pergola over your hot tub, things like that. It's kind of it can be kind of fun to break out the tools and do a little bit of work yourself. But I think that, at least I guess maybe I'd be curious to get your perspective as you've been going on this journey of helping to educate the market on this emerging market of continuous threat exposure management that was coined by Gartner last year. I guess how have you been seeing this evolve? Where a lot of teams are still doing the DIY security, DIY vulnerability management, risk management. I guess how do you kind of guide that discussion of, well, all these tools are open source, these things are all cheap. We can just do it ourselves versus, following some of these new innovative trends.
Yeah, I mean, I think security is continue to be more and more complex, and there certainly are organizations, large organizations, that have business intelligence teams and whatnot. But I think the problem is going to continue to get worse and worse and worse, with threat actors using more and more automation. Currently I'm working for a company called DAS, and what we're doing is we're helping customers unify their security data. And so this is teams of hundreds of millions of dollars of investment, teams of hundreds of people in R&D that are creating these platforms and staying up to the most current things. Generally, when what I hear is when we present kind of all the benefits of the platform, right? So we understand where the customer's pain are. We come and do a demo, like, this is how our platform can help you automate and save money. There's also a job satisfaction to things, right? I was talking to somebody months ago, and the comment was like, this platform that we have here helps, his brain's ready to explode at the end of the day by managing spreadsheets. There's nobody that likes managing spreadsheets, and our platform certainly solves a lot of those business problems. But from a job satisfaction, again, people are motivated by technology, by new cool things, by being disruptive in the organization, by helping automate, and transform their business. And that keeps good people engaged in the business and it becomes part of the culture. And I don't think there's a lot of people that are happy manually, working in spreadsheets all day just to close down a couple of vulnerabilities, or asking for the business intelligence team to create this report, and a week later they get it, and then it has to be customized 3 more times. It takes them 2 to 3 weeks to get, data that's already, stale, essentially. So I think this world of automation and unifying data with platforms and automation is definitely the road to the future.
Yeah. Now, I imagine you must, at least, throughout my career, every time we were, bringing new technology, bringing automation, a natural, fear of, okay, well, if there's all of this, if there's this new automation, these new efficiencies that are brought in, then what's going to happen to my job, right? If my job is to manipulate, manage, create those spreadsheets, then if we bring in automation, does that mean that I don't have a job anymore? I guess, how have you seen that materialize in some of the discussions that you've been having? And yeah, how do you see that narrative playing out in the industry right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a good employee and you're engaged in the business, you understand like where the problems are, and if you're a problem solver, and if you look out in the industry and find like a good solution and propose it internally, I mean, I think those people are highly regarded in organizations. Those are the people that you want to keep, and then their jobs are just going to evolve to doing working on other projects and maybe working on things that they actually like to do rather than kind of that mundane kind of manual work. So I mean, that's in my experience, is that, you have to disrupt yourself. You have to disrupt your business. You have to help transform to help them achieve their business outcomes. And personally, I like to be that person that if I'm stuck in some manual process and I'm hating my life and I'm bored and I'm ready to go home, early every day. And, like I just wouldn't personally stay in that job. And so I'm motivated by helping customers transform. And I think a lot of employees are motivated by helping customers, by helping their employees transform as well.
Yeah, I was just thinking of other, again, trying to think back to past roles and think things that we've encountered. Yeah, inevitably, I don't think I've come across an organization yet that just really loves their current vulnerability management spreadsheets or reports, or the millions of vulnerabilities that are thrown at them on a weekly basis. But there does seem to be this often, whether it's a reluctance or fear or whatever, to explore other options. Is that especially as someone who went from Cisco to Palo Alto, the kind of mortal enemies? How have you seen other factors like perhaps that big brand loyalty or things influence decisions in a way that's maybe not the ideal for the business?
I think I know the customer you're talking about, and what at Palo Networks, what they did is certainly they could consolidate a lot of things, but they started as a firewall, right? So it wasn't about, hey, let's take out your blue coat, let's take out your source fires, so we can just do this one piece over here, and we'll operationalize that. And in a year, I can come talk to you about like, when is your blue coat renewal, and I can talk to you about that. But it was about kind of establishing that land kind of beachhead, and then it was expanding. Once you've kind of earned the trust in that smaller portion of the business, then you can actually talk about, okay, like, when's your renewal for other technology? And then here's how our technology works. Could it replace it? And then, again, looking at the business case for that consolidation once you've kind of earned that beachhead and that trust in a portion of the business.
So while you and I were both at Palo Alto Networks, I remember John Kindervag came and joined Palo Alto Networks. The inventor, or individual who kind of coined the term zero trust many years ago. And I remember him saying that although he'd been in the industry for 30 years, he always liked to say that he only had 6 months of experience, because of how rapidly the industry is changing, and how really every 6, 12, 18 months, if you haven't been staying on top of the latest trends, the latest changes, then you're kind of out of date. With the acceleration of disruption that we're seeing around the globe with artificial intelligence and machine learning, what kind of excites you about what's on the horizon for us in cybersecurity? And I guess what excites you about what's coming next?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a trend perspective, certainly what I'm seeing is, a lot more use of artificial intelligence. I mean, I think the threat actors have been doing this for a long time to try to, scan our external attack surface and see where the weaknesses and vulnerabilities are. And I think you've got, a lot of organizations are actually using AI now to automate across their security infrastructure. And I think that's being helped by this adoption of platforms as well. So I think the example I gave earlier, Devon, was on average 10 to 15 different security vendors in your organization. On average, if you're a larger organization, 60 to 70 different security tools. And a lot of the cases, those tools would kind of live independently, and their data kind of lives in silos. And I think with the platformization kind of concept that's happening is that it gives us the ability to start automating across all of those different security tools, whereas it maybe in the past it hasn't been that easy to automate across many, many different security tools. And I think to combat the threat actors who are using high levels of automation, one is you need more platforms, you need more of these technologies being integrated together. And whether those are like loosely integrated together or tightly integrated together, you're seeing a big trend towards these unification platforms now that are maybe leveraging REST APIs to pull all the data into a platform, and leveraging some SOAR and some automation technology to achieve those levels of automation that the threat actors are using against us. So I think those are, kind of the trends that we're seeing and will continue to play out.
Yeah, and I mean that probably links back to right at the start of our discussion, as we were talking about right at the beginning of your career, you saw the potential for making data available, making it easy to access, connecting people with that data so that they can do interesting things with it. I believe that's where we're just this is another case of we're just seeing the same problems come up again with each wave of innovation. So we're now just in this phase where the AI, machine learning, automation, orchestration have now perhaps taken us from this time where we had all of these silver bullet point solutions. When I think back at my early days at the large pipeline organization, where we purchased the FireEye, the sandboxing technology, the APT detection, and that was just mind-blowing, transformational. I think for many years in the security industry, we had this just string of those silver bullet point solutions, whereas now a lot of what we've been focused on at Restive is how do we now just consume a lot of those point solutions, automate, orchestrate what happens between them, so that instead of spending all of your time and effort on the care and feeding and maintenance and updating and integrating of the dozens of different point solutions, you can instead be focused on how do we make better decisions, how do we actually drive the business outcomes that we're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it starts with, kind of integrating the data, pulling all the data into kind of a common platform. And the ultimate goal is to have the data integrated where you can actually start drawing correlations and contextualization of all that data so that data actually has meaning, and then automating the response. I think that's the key, is how do we actually automate the response to the threat actors and the APTs.
Right. And so, after, the long, illustrious career that you've had, if you look back on it, if you were to give, one key insight or something that was the most, impactfful for you, or something that you, wish you'd learned much earlier in your career about cybersecurity, what would that be? Key takeaway for someone who's maybe new to cybersecurity, newly inherited a portfolio that has cybersecurity in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always been this misconception that maybe security is a barrier, it's the roadblock, like the security team is the no team. I worked on a probably one of the largest projects ever we did in Western Canada. It was with a large Ministry of Education, and they were coming to the end of a life cycle of some existing firewalls. And we, through the project, we deployed about 1,522 firewalls across 60 school districts. And I remember the executive sponsor didn't necessarily consider this a security project. This was a project to safely enable the application use for all the students and all the teachers in the schools. And, that really caused this mind shift for me that it wasn't, security to stop people from doing things. It was to allow people, it was to enable the business. It was to enable the students to be able to, surf the internet safely, and for the teachers to be able to use whatever application. It was about the safe enablement of surfing and safe enablement of applications. So I guess what I learned is that, security doesn't necessarily have to be a barrier. Security can actually be an enabler to the business if done properly.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it is a little disheartening to see that so many organizations are still in that phase where they're still perhaps, fighting with the cybersecurity team because they are, instead of kind of partnering and figuring out how to, manage risk responsibly while, enabling the innovation and transformation, that ultimately they end up, in most cases, probably end up spending a lot more time, effort, and energy, and then still don't necessarily get the outcomes they're looking for from the cybersecurity side of things. So.
Yeah. And I think one of the other lessons I learned really early, and this was my webmaster career, is that, at that point, there was no IT department, there was no security department. And, security is not just the responsibility of the IT department or the security department. Security is everybody's business. And so, I remember hearing this concept and I thought it was great. It's around the personal firewall, right? So organizations have firewalls and lots of security technology, but humans can actually be a really great firewall. So security is everybody's responsibility. It's not just for the IT department.
Yeah, and in a previous role where we had one of the large famous management consulting organizations that's been in the news quite a lot lately, when we were working with them, the primary focus there was we were focused on the digital transformation and how do you build innovation and agility and things like that into an organization. And in their research, their studies, and in organizations that they had helped drive those types of transformations in Fortune 500 companies, they often found that in that case, when they applied the lens of innovation, that the organizations that truly were the most innovative and drove the best outcomes, they didn't actually have separate innovation teams. It was a case where innovation was, a core value that was embedded into the roles and expectations of everyone across the organization. And along those lines with what you're saying about cybersecurity being a part of everybody's role, is in one of my previous roles, we actually eliminated cybersecurity as a dedicated team. So in every organization that I was in, and almost every organization that I talked to, especially the ones that have critical infrastructure, we wasted so much time and energy essentially just infighting between infrastructure and cybersecurity and critical infrastructure. And so that's where, along those lines, we tried an experiment of, well, what if we just eliminated cybersecurity as a dedicated, distinct function and embedded it in the other departments? Yes, I believe that is it's a bit of a drastic and difficult approach, but I think looking further down the road, that I think that if you can get to a point where your cybersecurity reviews, your annual compliance audits, all those types of things are really just non-events. They're just a byproduct of managing your business well. That's where I believe the kind of future of cybersecurity needs to go, is make cybersecurity boring again, when you're in a time where you don't need to worry about if you're going to pass your next audit, or if you've got some gaping holes that you don't know about in your infrastructure. So maybe on the kind of final closing out point, since for both of us and a lot of our colleagues, cybersecurity has been a great career path. We've done very well in cybersecurity. If you were to give some advice to aspiring cyber defenders, people who want to get into the industry, what advice would you give to them, aside from probably having an in-depth plan was not necessarily a part of either of our success in cybersecurity?
Yeah, I would just say, if I just had the opportunity, I got to go to my kids' high school. It was a grade 12 class, and I had to talk about my career and cybersecurity. And, I did some research for that. And, obviously for me, my path was, I was just kind of bored in high school, didn't know what I wanted to do in university. So I just enrolled in this extracurricular night course. I think it was like 7 to 9 every night, just learn some programming. So for me, it was just like, I was good in sciences. I was good in math, didn't know what I wanted to do in university. So just took this course. It was very hands-on and loved it. And of course, you have, people that are ready to graduate high school and probably don't know what they want to do either, and don't necessarily want to invest in a 4-year university degree where it's going to cost, $80,000-$90,000 to do it. And so I just enrolled in these courses just for fun, right? I was for my kids' high school class where I was asked to present. Google offers a course right now. It's a cybersecurity course that Google offers. And I think Google talks about the average entry level salary of a security analyst is somewhere around $80,000 a year now, with like 25,000 job openings across North America, and probably a lot more than that. And so, just look into it, take some of the, take a night course, take a weekend course, do some of these online courses to see if it's something that you might be interested in.
Yeah, it's interesting. I sat in on I was part of a panel last week for the for essentially a not for profit in Canada that helps youth get early training and then early mentorship and internship placements in cybersecurity roles across Canada. And when I think back to some of the questions that were being asked there and the advice that we panelists had provided, I think it was pretty similar. It was just go dive in, right? So go start learning, right? Go take some classes. There are a bunch of other free resources like the Hack the Box or other types of challenges out there. These are all free resources that you can access. You can learn. You can try it to see whether it's even something that you're interested in. But I'll say I have found it interesting, as we've done dozens of interviews over the last year for our business. I have found it interesting how a lot of people who are entering the job market right now are they're waiting to be told for something. Mm-hmm. Whereas I guess maybe the advice that both of us might have here is, just start, go try something, go acquire some skills, try it out, see what you like, and then you'll learn, that's when you stumble across the cliched term of, follow your passion and you'll never work another day in your life. In this case, it would be, if you think that cybersecurity might be for you, go try it, right? Kick the tires on some of these different training opportunities that are out there. Go to a hackathon and experience it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've got the two boys, 17 and 12, and I had them go on a mission to enable multi-factor authentication. So if anyone's listening, step one is like enable MFA. Just because you have a strong password doesn't mean you can't be hacked. Just them doing, downloading an authenticator app and installing that, like that was like fun for them. So, and then my mom, I got her on like one of the password managers, LastPass or 1Password, and just exposing them a little bit to cybersecurity.
That's awesome. Well, again, Terry, thank you so much for carving out the time after, just starting a new role with DAS in also coming up on the end of the year where everybody's very, very busy. So thank you for carving out the time. I'll always enjoy our chats to debate the the essence of the problems and challenges in cybersecurity, and look forward to seeing how things continue to evolve with DAS.
Yeah, thanks, Devon. Talk to you soon.
Thanks. Thanks for tuning in to Beyond Checkbox Compliance. At Restive, we believe cybersecurity is about empowerment, not fear. If today's conversation has resonated with you, share the episode and help spread the word, because it's time to leave checkbox security in the past. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And until next time, remember, true security isn't just about meeting standards, it's about raising. Stay secure, stay sharp, and we'll see you again soon.